the whole premise of these witch trials, it's not a passive thing, it's a rageful thing. How dare you? How dare you choose yourself, and how dare you are not allowing us to control you? It's a message that needed to be sent out into the world. If you step out of line, we will hurt you.
Yeah.
And we get that as child-free women. I'm Zoe.
And I'm James.
And we are child-free.
Welcome to this cursed episode.
Oh, God.
Right?
I'm scared.
Yeah. Well, we tried to record this before, a couple of days ago.
What happened about that, James? What happened?
The God of the Christian patriarchy
Came into the recorder.
Tried to silence us. And this mic ran out of battery somehow.
James's mic. It just accidentally ran out of battery, did it?
No. We were speaking truth to power.
Someone needed to shut us up.
Yeah, they thought we were doing dark magic on here. And they tried to silence us, but we're back.
We're back, baby.
And we're talking about how child-free women are the new witches.
Are they ever?
Mm-hmm. So this is Zoe's idea for an episode, and also our Dolly patrons who support us on Substack voted, and this is by far their pick of our other episode ideas.
I'm so glad that they chose this one. I was kind of secretly hoping that they would choose this one.
You put a spell on them.
I did. I cast that wicked spell.
And it worked.
Made them do my bidding.
So here we are. And yeah, I've been doing tons of research, maybe too much research.
I mean, every time, babes, every time is too I'm like, what are you doing today? I'm doing the podcast outline. I'm like, okay.
Same thing I do every day. So one good thing about the fact that we didn't record the rest of the episode early in the week is I had fallen down a rabbit hole.
A research rabbit hole. It happens. It happens sometimes. It's okay. This is just who you are. And then I come in and I just trample all over it.
Yeah,
and make it better.
You're just telling me stories about witches now.
I mean, I love that.
Yeah.
But I want to really build this kind of these threads between the witches and the child-free women, because I know they're there. I know there is a clear pattern here. And I'm intrigued as to, I just want to help everyone else see what I've been seeing for a few years.
So tell us about that. Yeah, where did this idea come from? Like, in your mind, how are child-free women the new witches?
I've just been seeing them being demonized, dehumanized over the last few years. Has been increasing. When we started this project in 2017, talking and meeting with child-free women, I never saw that in the media. And I think because we've been getting louder, we've been getting more platforms, we have a voice now that clearly is stoking up, excuse the pun, stoking up a lot of fear in some people. And we see that coming out in the media articles that we're seeing. And they're never talking about child-free men. It's always women. Women are the problem. Women are to be blamed. And that, to me, rings very true to the witch trials and who predominantly they were burning at the stake back then.
100%. One thing I did find out in my research, not all witches were burned.
Okay.
Some were just drowned or strangled.
Oh, God. Okay.
But no matter how you went out, they would always burn your body afterwards.
Nice.
So the devil couldn't resurrect you.
Sure.
And use you for nefarious aims.
Cool.
Not because of misogyny, but for those very practical reasons.
Oh, God. It's all a load of nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're going to get into some real fuckery and folklore mixing with real life and wildness.
I mean, back then you had the excuse of people didn't know any better, and now we have a lot of science and everything, but they're still using the same tactics.
They are.
Because they know it works. They know if you can dehumanize groups of people, vulnerable people, marginalized people, you can turn whole swaths of other people against them. And I guess that is the idea, is turn the rest of society against us. If you blame us, you can take away our rights. You can do whatever you want. You can tell women that, no, that path is wrong for you, and we're going to actually take away your rights to access reproductive healthcare, all of that stuff. Okay, I'm getting too far. I'm getting too far into
little
it.
Teaser there. Little teaser. But yeah, to set the scene, So when we think about witches, there are like actual witches, or rather people who were actually in history accused of witchcraft. And there are like symbolic representations, this icon of the witch in folklore and in fiction. And over time, they've been stirred up together into like this powerful potion that the modern protectors of patriarchy are still like sipping from.
Okay.
And one question that we both had going into this was, are witches always women?
I mean, that's the idea that we all have, because witches to us today, it's a vision of a woman.
Yeah.
So you just assume back then it was all women.
Yeah, and what describe that woman to me?
Okay, let me paint a really beautiful, pretty picture. So, what I always have been told about witches is that they're old, haggard, maybe they've got long grey hair, hooked noses, warts, just generally evil, haggard. The words that they use obviously are haggard, spinster, crone. And that's why it's important that we reclaim those words, because they use them as like a scaremongering tactic. It's like, you know, if you're not careful, ladies, you're going to turn into these horrible women who no one wants to touch or speak to, and we'll burn you as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty much those are the vibes.
That's the vibes, and those are the vibes of the kind of fictional witch, right? The witch from fairy tales and Disney movies and stuff. Yes, always a woman, usually an older woman, in their true form, always ugly and repellent.
Yeah.
And they're always kind of fucking around with men and children and all sorts of stuff like that. But historically, those accused of witchcraft were those women as well. So in my nerdy research, I found out that there's nothing inherently gendered about the word witch or the concept of a witch until about the 15th century, which is when the witch trials start up.
Right.
And alongside that, the word basically became like kind of a slur, an accusation, a condemnation. And in those cases, that's when it became gendered to mean like a woman.
Right. Got
And
you.
so like from that point onward, basically a man who's accused of witchcraft becomes like a he witch or something. It's always modified, but by itself, witch means woman.
Right.
And like we're saying, a certain idea of a kind of woman.
Okay.
So the witch trials happened between the 15th and 17th century in medieval Europe and then the colonies of North America. Just one of the terrible things that people brought over from Europe while they were colonizing that lovely continent. And the estimates say that somewhere between 40,000 and 4 million people were executed of being witches.
My God.
Which around that time was like the population of Sweden.
Bloody hell. And the fact that it's such a great difference in they have no idea. You know, like there were no records kept about just murdering these people and women predominantly. So
sometimes they did keep records.
Okay, good.
Not that often, but sometimes they kept records because people were tried in real courts, and there were like court records of these things and what happened. And so
but
there's
not
this
enough, right? Not enough.
No, not enough. It's not recognized enough or really acknowledged even to this day.
Probably more people were being murdered and burned outside of courts.
Oh, yeah, I reckon.
Yeah.
Because there's this Wikipedia list of 160 people who were executed for witchcraft. And so of those people, do you know, or I guess do you remember, after recording the other day?
I probably don't, because my brain doesn't work so well. So yeah.
How many of those 160 do you think were women?
Okay, I think I remember roughly it's in the 80%.
It's exactly the 80%.
It's exactly 80%.
At least according to the breakdown of like some
brain.
nerd who went deeper into this list than I did.
Okay.
So obviously, judging by that and extrapolating out, like most people accused of witchcraft were women.
Yeah.
And like we were saying, that's like a dark, distant part of our history that's been dramatized so much that we kind of treat it as fiction at this point. And as you were saying, and as we learned from this great podcast, which I'll link to, this BBC4 podcast called Witch, which we were sent by Jamie from our community.
Yeah, so good.
Really good.
Depressing, but good.
Yeah, you found out that basically, like, to this day, people are campaigning and fighting for recognition of the atrocities that our countries committed, mostly against women. And it casts a long shadow over our present times, which colours how we view modern women who don't fit our prescribed norms.
Absolutely.
Like child-free women. So I've got a few things to cover here. I've got 7 points.
Oh.
Which felt like a spooky number. But then when I almost fell down a rabbit hole of like numerology.
Oh, bloody hell. You've got too much time on your hands, lads. I'm going to add more shit to your task list.
No, this is the work. This is the important work I'm doing.
Okay.
But before we get to that, I was just wondering, like, Zoe, when you first thought up We Are Child Free, what was it? What compelled you to start taking portraits of child-free women?
I mean, I think it was pure frustration at being labelled something I wasn't. You know, it's like when you haven't done anything wrong. I guess I have this desire to show the truth. And people would just assume so many negative things about me because I didn't want to have kids. People would be like, you must hate kids. There's something wrong with you. You know, you're broken. You didn't have love as a child. So it's just this endless judgment from sometimes strangers, also sometimes loved ones. People who knew me for years, my whole life, didn't seem to know me because of this one thing I told them, which to me just didn't, it's something that I had to fight against. So I knew as a photographer, I could take photos, I could interview these women, and I could literally show people we are not monsters. We don't want to take away children's rights. We don't want to murder children. We just don't want to have any children of our own.
Yeah, I think like when we tell your origin story, there's like this idea that when you were younger, or I guess when like, you know, depending on how young you are out there, you might remember this as well. There were basically no representations of child-free women in the media. And chances are, unless you were lucky, you might not know of any in your life either.
No,
people
I knew
just
no
didn't
one.
talk about it.
No, and the only representation that I had was a negative representation. So let's say Samantha from Sex and the City, she's career obsessed. She hates children. I thought she was a badass. But ultimately, the way the world saw women who didn't have kids was in a negative way. And that came up, when it did come up, it was a negative. It wasn't, wow, this woman is like carving out her own path and how incredibly courageous and independent that is. And it was none of that. And I wanted to show the truth. That was it.
Yeah, so this double idea, this idea of like child-free women and childless women not being shown, but then also if they do happen to the rare occasions on which they are shown, it's in a negative light.
Yeah.
That's something really, that's kind of the first thing that I would draw as a comparison with witches.
Yeah.
I'm not the first person to notice that. Jodie Day, who we featured on the podcast and as a portrait.
Yes.
She calls herself an apprentice crone.
Fabulous.
She's done a lot of work for the childless community. And these days she's worried a bit less about the different labels that we all fit under. And she's like campaigning a lot for basically all kinds of non-parents, especially non-mothers.
Yeah.
And she wrote this great article I'll link to called The Symbolic Annihilation of Childless Women in Films and Media. And she got this idea of symbolic annihilation from third-wave feminist scholar Gail Tuchman. And one aspect of that is condemnation. So Zoe, if you could read these words from Jodie.
When a marginalised group do find themselves represented, it is often to be vilified in some way. To show that it's not just a backlash against recent strides in gender equality, I'd like you to think for a moment about fairy tales, and specifically how the evil women of fairy tales are always childless, from Snow White's evil stepmother to the child-eating witch of Hansel and Gretel, or the witch next door in Rapunzel, who steals the baby of her long childless neighbours and locks her in a tower, using female childlessness as a cultural shorthand for female deviancy, has deep roots. Meanwhile, motherhood is often used to represent idealized female qualities such as loyalty, compassion, nurturing, selflessness, courage, etc., creating an archetype of perfection that sets the bar impossibly high for real-life flesh and blood mothers. Because none of us are either angels or devils. We're all just perfectly imperfect humans, muddling through our lives like everyone else. Amazing words. Absolutely amazing. This idea that one is a negative and one is a positive, and we get it from birth. This isn't a message that we get when we're adults. We get it as we're children in the books we read, the Disney movies that we watch.
Yeah, and in those movies, the heroines, or I guess they weren't, not even heroines, the protagonists,
right,
until recently, were princesses.
Yeah.
And they were very idealized.
So passive.
Like, very passive. These kind of models of a certain type of femininity that fits the beauty standard. And all they want is like a man to come save them.
Yeah.
And then presumably after that point, they have kids and
live happily ever after,
live happily
right?
ever after. Yeah, that's the whole picture. And I think, like you said earlier, this kind of like dehumanizing aspect of the way in which child-free women are talked about, like, kind of goes both ways. Even this idealized womanhood, like the stuff that you're supposed to do, even to this day, like you were saying, from birth, the stuff that you are raised to do and the way in which you are supposed to be, it's like, be an angel, right? And if you don't, then you're a devil. There's like, and there's no in between. There's no humanity in between.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. That's why we recognize that also mothers are judged in a multitude of ways. Yes, society rewards you for following the script that it lays out, and that road is parenthood and motherhood for sure. So you will be rewarded in some ways, but you will still, as a woman, you're judged no matter what you do. You can't win, so you better live your life the way you want to.
100%.
Yeah.
And you're gonna be punished either way.
Absolutely.
Like, mothers are punished if they're not perfect, if they don't have enough kids, if they're not properly invested in their lives.
Ashamed if they say there's anything wrong with their experience of motherhood. We know that through the regretful parents. You know, there's a reason why regretful parents have to be anonymous most of the time, because they receive so much shame and backlash. How dare you say your experience is anything but perfect? Even when parents will say, I love my kids, I just don't love being a mother or a parent. There's nothing wrong with that, but society, it's horrifying to see how much society blames women no matter what you do.
Because this idea of what a woman should be is an impossible ideal to meet. So even if you're trying, they're going to find a way to fuck with you. So I guess, like Zoe's kind of saying, like, maybe don't try if you can.
Don't play their game. I mean, that's the thing. Once you play their game, you're in it, and you'll never win it. So why put yourself in it? I mean, I guess in so many ways, I try and take myself out of the game in as many different ways as possible. Having kids, I'm like, I'm not going to be part of this thing that is going to hurt me more, sadly, because of the way it's set up in our society right now. I'm not going to listen to the beauty standards set by patriarchy and start to change my body, start to change my, how I
Well, you don't need to.
Ah, bless, yeah. But there is a real pressure on women to remain youthful. Don't look like that haggard old witch, right? Don't age. You're disgusting if you age. And it's almost like, we have to understand we are raised in this system. And how can I ask more questions of why? Why am I doing these things?
Right.
Why do I want kids? Why do I shave my body hair? Why do I do all these things that patriarchy tells me I should do? And once you start asking why, you realize that road leads to patriarchy or pronatalism or capitalism, because that's the system we all live under.
Yeah, and it's deliberate. It's been planned and perpetuated over time.
Right.
And I love this quote from Mona Chollet, who wrote a book called In Defense of Witches, who was interviewed for that Radio 4 podcast. She said that witches had a disciplinary effect which totally changed forever the way of being a woman in the West. To survive, you have to lay low, comply.
Absolutely. It's all about silencing us. The whole point is to make women weaker, to make our voices smaller, and we have to push against that all the time, you know? Everything is about keeping us small and minimizing us.
And keeping you under control.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's the second thing, is that basically, like witches, child-free women are a problem because you are at least one kind of step out of the control of men.
Yeah.
You are outside of the nuclear family, which is where the ideas, especially the conservative ideas of like trad wives and breadwinners and stuff like that. The idea is that there's a man who's the head of the family who basically has control over what happens, and the woman plays an important role, but her position is beneath him.
Yeah.
And that kind of nuclear family, that's a locus of control for like patriarchal, conservative, traditional people. And so that in that way, witches, by not conforming to the way in which women should be, or their role and position, were out of control and were therefore seen as a problem.
Oh, yeah.
And there was even this idea, which I came across in some of the stories, of the devil as like the witch's husband.
Okay. We can't get away from having a husband. We have to have a husband.
Right. So if you've seen The Vivitch, don't worry, I'm not going to describe the entire plot of the film like I did the first time recording this podcast.
Yeah, I'm kind of grateful for that. It's a great film. It's a great film. Don't get me wrong.
But
but yeah, it's a podcast medium.
Yeah, but there's this figure, Black Phillip, the goat, starts off as a talking goat, but then it turns out that he's actually the devil in disguise.
Yeah,
and that kind of figure as like the kind of seductive, dark figure of the devil that would take a girl or a woman away from their family and household and lead them towards evil. That's actually quite a common idea that comes up in the witch hunts again and again.
right.
And yeah, that idea, like you were saying, she's got to have a husband.
Yeah, God forbid she just is like enjoying her life by herself.
Right, like the idea of an independent woman is so terrifying.
Yeah.
That people like conjured up stories and wrote entire books like the Witchfinder's Bible to describe what was happening, which replaced a human spouse with another male figure who commanded and controlled them. But this time, an impure, like malevolent force.
Yeah, I mean, because a woman who doesn't have a partner, is living life on her terms, that is terrifying to patriarchy. If we can dictate what we do with our time, our lives, we don't answer to anyone, then we can empower other women to do the same. We can show them literally, I'm having a blast by myself. I don't actually need anyone. I don't need to have a husband or kids or be part of this system that you tell me. And that's why when we've been doing the Elder Project, it's given such amazing hope, and it empowers me to know that, oh, these women are having a fucking blast.
Right.
And that's not what we tell women. That's not the picture that we paint for older child-free women, is it?
Especially like the single ones are also having a blast.
Right.
And that's a whole other...
Yeah.
Like, as we know from speaking to people in the community, there's like kind of a level of acceptance now for usually heterosexual couples who don't have kids, and like otherwise they're like modeling the expected behaviors. But if you're single, the stigma's like double.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And if you've gotten to like the age of 60, 70 or 80 and you're single, like people basically practically do see you as a witch.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like there's something wrong with you. Like seeing the single folks in our community and what they go on top of just not having kids is like, it's a whole other level of stigma and judgment. Our whole society is geared towards partnering up women to men. Like it's just the whole thing is if you're not chosen by a man, there is something wrong with you. And We're seeing this now with the younger generations, and women are asking, actually, if you can't bring value into my life, why do I need this again? Why do I need to be married? Why do I need to have a partner? And I'm really glad that younger women are kind of, again, asking questions and going, actually, I can just create a wonderful life, and I don't need to have this thing that you keep telling me I must have in my life. But yeah. It's... So that gives me hope.
Yeah, and when women are like out of control in that way, they're seen as a threat.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
To plug another great book, Harpy by Caroline McGuinness,
amazing book.
Who's also part of our community. We've gotten to meet her. She's awesome. In that book, she compared child-free women to a witch as a malignant force. She has gone from being the object of pity and fear to someone who must be vanquished or purged for the natural order of things to be restored.
I mean, that's a really important point, isn't it? It's not just that, oh, you should be scared of this woman. It's that we need to literally obliterate this woman. You need to fear her, and actually I think we should kill her. I think we should get rid of her.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the whole premise of these witch trials, and it's not a passive thing. It's a rageful thing. How dare you? How dare you choose yourself, and how dare you are not allowing us to control you? It's a message that needed to be sent out into the world. If you step out of line, we will hurt you.
Yeah.
And we get that as child-free women.
Oh, yeah. There's so many different ways this comes through, from like women being denied sterilization, which we'll get into more in a bit. But like this idea that we can't possibly allow child-free women to exist.
Right.
To the way in which abortion is demonized, to the way in which countries like Russia will ban child-free propaganda, so that to all intents and purposes, it's like you can kind of live a life as a child-free person, but you will still get a lot of pressure, because that's a very pro-natalist, like top-down directive.
I don't think they can be a child-free in Russia.
Well, you certainly can't tell anyone about it.
And to me, that means you can't live it. If you can't be open about who you are being oppressed and told, basically. And that kind of law saying it's child-free propaganda is wrong. It's punishable. It's like, okay, I can't even exist as myself. I have to hide it, which is obviously very similar to queer folks. And Russia has obviously this history of, we need to stamp out anything that goes against this kind of traditional model nuclear family, and child-free people are seen as a threat to the traditional ways of life, which is a man and a woman and kids, and keep your mouth shut and just Yeah,
and in Harpy, McGuinness also says that if you're a woman who isn't at the center of a nuclear family, you live on the fringes, abusing your menageries and bothering the good people at town meetings.
Yes.
So you're seen as like basically outside of kind of civilization.
Yeah.
And a threat,
not contributing, right?
100%.
Yes. You're kind of just worthless to us and society.
Yeah, and that reminded me of what one of our first portrait subjects said to us, Gwen.
Yeah.
Absolute icon, a tattooist based in Berlin who has done... Has she just done one of my tattoos?
Oh, no.
Done my tattoo of Katja the drag queen. Is that the only one?
Is that really the only one?
Oh, well, she updated it when I got it signed by Katja, and so she inked in the signature. So Gwen said, there's a sort of suspicion about child-free women, about what we are doing with our time and money. People wonder, when left to our own devices, what trouble we get up to.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Oh, yeah.
Nailed it. And she could be describing a witch, or like a person who, back in the day, was accused of witchcraft.
Right. Totally.
This like suspicion.
Oh, yeah.
Around a woman who...
Be careful.
Yeah, who doesn't seem to be living like other people.
Yeah.
And therefore should be feared.
Yeah, she must be doing something bad with that free time that she has, right?
Yeah, something evil. And so, like, one of these evil things, like we were talking a little bit about before, a lot of these people accused of witchcraft were healers, and especially midwives. And there's this thread running through the accusations of witchcraft, of like the powers that be not liking that women had control over their bodily autonomy,
Right.
which we don't need to tell you is not something that has gone away.
No. Still here today. I still have women messaging me in the DMs saying, I was denied the sterilization procedure, or even more horrifying, I need to get my husband's permission. That still goes on today.
Right.
In some states in America, that still happens today.
Or like Roz, who we saw in Scotland.
Oh, yeah.
Who she had to
yeah.
take her then boyfriend along to so many meetings with different doctors. And in the end, they had to pretend they were engaged. He had to have like a fake engagement ring so that he could sign off on what she wanted for her body.
Wild.
To just be sterilized and not have children.
Yeah.
Because she was in her like 20s at the time. And they'll always tell you, wait till you're 35. 35 seems to be like the number that doctors stick to.
But it's not. So many women still tell me that they basically couldn't get it until they're in their 40s. And then by that point, you're like, right, well, I'm hitting menopause soon. So what's the point of this?
And Monica in Berlin told us that like when she went to a doctor, he said, yeah, don't waste your time, basically. By the time you get someone to agree to this, you'll be in menopause anyway.
I don't understand how we are still living in this time where a woman says, I don't want this thing, believe it. I mean, so many women are going to doctors and they're just infantilized. They're told, you'll change your mind. I'm sorry, why do you know me better than I know myself? How do you know what I will be wanting in the future? If I'm telling you I know what I want now, listen to me. And we've had this ourselves. James got a vasectomy, no bother, no pushback. I faced a lot of pushback when I wanted a hysterectomy, when I had fibroids. So we know personally how we are treated differently as a man and a woman when we go and seek medical treatment. And this happens again and again still in this time. And we have a series on the website which shares the stories of people in our community who were denied, are denied sterilization procedures, hysterectomies, because their fertility is seen as more of a priority. How is that right in 2026?
And that wasn't new in the time of the witch trials, but this is around the time where it becomes really formalized.
Right.
And I think that things would be a lot different today if we still had this tradition of women looking after women, and especially midwives and healers who would try and treat women as humans.
Absolutely.
And also act on their wishes as well.
Yeah, giving birth was so different back then. You just were surrounded by women who had been through it, who had done it, who were crying with you, laughing with you. That is a different thing to isolating you off. And I mean, even the way we give birth now, we give birth in a different way than what we did, because we actually it's more natural to give birth on all fours, but men saw that as derogatory or saw that as shameful. So we told women, you have to sit on your back, you have to lie on your back to give birth, which is not as natural.
We just do that to this day.
And it's just wild to me that, we still live under this medical misogyny, and we lost so much amazing knowledge by just taking that away from these women, because men didn't like that. Those women had that power and knowledge, and people listened to them, and men didn't like that, so they took it away from them.
Yeah, like especially when doing so would result in anything that would stop just more babies being produced.
Right.
That was, and for some people still is, the biggest priority. So there are so many stories of witches killing children.
Okay.
And even the devil acting to kill children in the womb.
Wow.
Which
okay.
is, abortion.
Yeah.
And women's bodily autonomy was one of the evils that the accusation of witchcraft often included as evidence of a kind of magical aggression.
Okay.
And there's this book called The Witchfinder's Bible that said, no one does more harm to the Catholic Church than midwives.
Oh.
midwives.
What?
Not even like witches. Or they're kind of
Wow.
using the term interchangeably, basically. Like,
Wow. Did it say why?
well, because
They
of
don't get
things
to
like
say. They don't
this.
get to explain their shit, do they? They're
I
just
mean,
like.
if you okay, so I'm quote. I haven't read the Witchfinder's Bible.
Oh, James, you haven't done your research,
right? Yeah, we need to stop down. I need to
Shocking.
go away for another month and read this like medieval text.
You would love that.
Yeah. But if you read between the lines, it must be because they're assisting women with things other than
Like
childbirth,
abortion.
like abortion.
Yes, things that would help women take control
Yeah.
over their lives. Yes.
And if you
yes.
compare that to how abortion is demonized still today,
Yes.
not just by Catholics, not just by religious people,
Right.
like it's still viewed as suspect. And
Absolutely.
it would not be if we still had a culture of midwives.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you a little story of one of these.
It's all right. You don't have to be scared.
So scared because I went
Going
so
off track.
long last
No,
time.
you're not going off track, love. Carry on. This is a safe space. Go for
So let me tell you about Walpurga Hausmannin,
it. Oh, okay.
a German midwife who was executed for witchcraft, vampirism, and child murder.
Wow. Okay.
So she was a newly made widow, and she was working in the fields, and she arranged for one of her male co-workers to come over and have sex. And then the story goes, this is what she confessed to, that the man didn't turn up, but a demon did instead in his clothes.
Okay.
So she has sex with the demon. I mean,
That's all right.
whatever. I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum.
No, right? You can get it, girl.
And the demon promised to save her from poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So she swore herself to Satan in a contract that the demon then takes to the devil to be confirmed, basically. Which I like that little touch. There's a very German bureaucratic approach to signing away your soul.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be notarized.
As German
right?
citizens who lived there for 12 years, they like their paperwork.
Yeah, go into the Ordnungsamt. It is a bit like this.
It is, yeah.
So she confessed to having murdered 40 children during her
Okay.
work as a midwife before they were baptized,
Mm-hmm.
and to having sucked their blood like a vampire, eating them with other witches, using their hair for sorcery, all that
Okay.
kind of stuff. And I was like, 40 kids. Like, it reminded me a bit of the Satanic Panic.
Oh, yeah.
There's this great Sarah Marshall podcast called The Devil You Know, all about it.
Yeah.
And lots of these accusations, the clearest parallel to the witch hunts is the Satanic Panic of the 80s and 90s. And a lot of the times, those were centered on child abuse and child murder as well. And people were being accused of killing dozens or hundreds of children. And they had, people at the time had the same question that I do, which is like, where did all these, where are they?
Yeah.
Where did they all go?
You can't just murder 40 babies and no one noticed that. Like,
unless you're counting abortions
right, yeah.
as murdered children,
Okay, yeah.
which we all know
is
is not what an abortion is.
No.
But then maybe if she'd performed 40 abortions,
Right.
which is also a sacrilegious thing,
Okay, yeah.
then kind of still a bit now. And the powers that be like really made an example of Walpurga. And the powers that be, the people who decide this stuff, are both the imperial court and the church. So they sentence her to death. They parade her through the city. They stop 5 times in different spots to mutilate her in front of people. And on the place of execution, just before she's burned at the stake, they cut off her right hand. And they do that because the right hand is the hand with which you make your oath as a midwife.
God.
So, like, clear message there.
Barbaric. Like,
that they are coming after midwives.
Yeah.
And yeah, truly, truly barbaric. And it also, like, this is around the time when health work was professionalized,
right.
by which I mean basically they wrested control over healing and childbirth, especially away from women, and put them in the hands of professionals, i.e. men.
Uh-huh.
And that's when female patients became these like passive recipients of treatment, which was determined by the men in charge. And I think started this medical bias that continues to this day.
Yeah.
Especially prioritizing women's fertility over their actual wishes.
Absolutely.
And so midwives were viewed as doubly suspicious, though, both because of the work that they did,
Right.
and also because they were getting paid for it.
Okay.
And this financial freedom is
Interesting.
something that was very suspicious among people back then who got
Right.
accused of witchcraft, and also of child-free women today. Like Gwen was saying, people are suspicious about what child-free women do with their time
Yeah.
and money.
Mm-hmm.
And so Valpurga, in part of her confession, was that this demon had promised to save her from poverty,
Okay.
which was kind of back then the only conceivable way a widow could survive. Like, how could she possibly support herself? Well, she must be in league with Satan.
Okay.
And there was this other story of a Spanish healer who was accused of leading a coven of witches. And basically, what I read about this was saying that at the time, in these highlands near Aragon, Spain, women like that who were single and supporting themselves by engaging in occupations such as herbalism, midwifery, pandering, or performing some health work were more likely to be accused of witchcraft.
Okay.
Traditionally, in Spain, a witch was defined as an older woman of low status who is believed capable, or so she is considered, of causing magical aggression. Which,
I mean,
pretty sick.
it's
Magical
very cool.
aggression.
Very cool. I mean, yeah, it's women who can earn their own money. They are uncontrollable, because if you can earn a living, if you can provide for yourself, you don't need to have a partner, you don't need to have a husband.
Yeah.
You can set yourself outside of that patriarchal system. That's a problem. And we get this today. What, you're just going to have your career, you're not going to have a husband, or you're not going to have children. So yeah, you're very selfish, aren't you? You just want to have a career and earn money. That idea that it's not enough, it's not worthy enough. What's worthy is you sacrificing yourself and your life and earning whatever money you could earn and having children. That's the ultimate goal for a woman.
Yeah, that's the idea of having it all. And so since the 70s, it's been permissible for women to have careers and earn money. As long as they still have children,
Right.
and still have a husband, and ideally that husband earns more.
Right.
And so they're still contained within that system, and they're not truly financially free.
Yeah.
But you see this especially of child-free women.
Yeah.
There's this like stereotype of, I guess, the like hard-nosed businesswoman.
Oh yeah.
Which has been flipped into the girl boss, and now with a kind of the pushback against that has led toward the idea of a trad wife.
The trad wife,
right?
yeah, that's it. It's so exhausting, isn't it? Earning your own money and having to do everything yourself. It's so tiring. So,
and even though, and you can see that kind of like double standard in there with the trad wife influencers, right? Is like they have a job and a career, which is posting this content and doing sponsorship deals and everything. But it's permissible because they also have a bunch of kids that they have to look after. We don't know who's actually looking after them. That seems mean and like anti-feminist. Not having I do not have a problem with women having nannies or like to look after their kids. It's just that's not the image that they're projecting.
No. No, you never see an older trad wife. I mean, we see only women in their 20s. So there's a pattern here, isn't it? It's women who are, when you're younger, you're much more easily led because you're trying to get that external validation because you've been conditioned to need it.
Yeah.
And in your 20s, you aren't as strong as you are as you age. And like, as you are getting older, you're not going to buy the bullshit.
Yeah.
And patriarchy knows that. The systems know that. They need to get you in young. That's why in the USA right now, they're actually complaining about teen pregnancies lowering. Because they recognize that young girls and women, once you get them in the system, it's so much harder to get them out.
Yeah.
Once they have those kids as a teenage girl, they're going to have more kids. They can't really look after themselves. So they're going to get married and have a partner. And if you don't do that, if you don't get them young, we are much harder to manipulate.
Yeah, and we're kind of obsessed with the birth rate panic. We've done an episode on it, and we're going to be talking about this at Storyhouse Childless in September.
Can't wait.
And just know that if you're in the States and you're hearing reports of your fertility rate going down, that's because teen pregnancies are going down.
Yeah.
So
Which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing.
Ugh.
So if you're hearing about that as if it's a problem, you're hearing from someone who at least like secondhand is repeating some fucked up pronatalist talking points.
Oh yeah.
But back to witches.
Please.
But like, yes, this idea of financial freedom, like you see that when people are accused of witches, actually a lot of their alleged crimes includes damage to and death of assets, including crops and livestock, and of children who were valued more for their economic value back then. And so like basically what was actually happening was, I don't know, there'd be some kind of blight or something, and the crops would all die, or there'd be disease among the animals or the people there, and people or animals would die, and then they'd look around for someone to blame, and they'd find it in independent woman, basically.
It's a perfect scapegoat,
right? Because once you have sentenced them to death, then you can seize their assets,
right?
And they did that every time. And then the money that woman had came back under control of the men.
Fucking bastards.
Fucking bastards.
It makes me very rageful. Just thinking about, like women who worked their arses off and actually built something for themselves. And then we don't want you to have that. We're going to take it away from you.
Yeah.
Like, so disgusting. Yeah. Disgusting. Yes.
Let's talk about hags.
Yes, I mean we've got some hag. I love the word hag. All of the words that they try to throw at us: spinster, hag, crone, thornback. I mean they're damn amazing to me. We've got merch that has hag on it. I've got a hat and a t-shirt and a jumper with hag on, and I love rocking them because it's like, I'm sorry, if you think this is going to make me follow your path and be scared about aging, fuck you.
And that's at the root of it, basically. Like older women are supposed to be feared and marginalized,
right?
Just like child-free women of any age are supposed to be as well. And the reason is you and they are not useful anymore to patriarchy. Be either aged out of fertility, or you're just not lending your fertility to the pronatalist cause.
Right.
And that's all they want from you. What comes up quite a lot with the birth rate panic and everything is like, it's not about children, it's about control.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, when you have children, you are more under control of men and the system. Yeah. Because you have to prioritize those children.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It is your responsibility as the woman ultimately to make sure those kids are okay. Yes. And of course, you would do anything for them. And
patriarchy
the powers
knows that.
And it exploits that. So words like hag and crone are literally thrown around in the manosphere to describe childless and child-free women, and especially if they're older. Right. So there's this like tying together of older women who are past their fertility with women who are resisting the pressure to use their fertility, and all kind of being like demonized and dehumanized with the same kind of language. And both sets of women are seen as a threat, right? Because you have fewer fucks to give. Yeah. You're more uninhibited. You're more insolent.
We'll call that shit out.
Right.
I mean, that's the beauty of aging. You stop giving a fuck. You stop trying to make everyone else feel comfortable. You realize that you get to be comfortable yourself, that you don't need to please anyone else. All that matters is that you prioritize what you want. And when age, you get that confidence and ability to push back and set the boundaries that you weren't able to have in your 20s. And I was that person in my 20s, and I love that I'm coming into myself. And that's the beautiful thing about when women do get into their 40s, 50s, 60s. We know ourselves so much better, and it's just a wonderful thing to see. But society is going to try and make you think that it is the worst thing possible to age and get older.
And to appear as if you're aging.
Oh, God.
And getting older.
There is, going to be nothing more horrendous. This brings to mind an article that was published this week, a French author who was talking about how he basically is disgusted by women's 50-year-old bodies.
Right.
He's 50.
Yeah.
And that how a young body is something of beauty and an older woman's body is basically disgusting. He will not date women his own age or older. And I mean, to lay that out, to have no shame about what he was saying in an article to a journalist, that tells me there are so many men out there who, well, we know many of them think like this. You know, we've got the Leonardo DiCaprios, we've got the men who literally will
Epstein class.
Oh my God, they'll only date children and they'll assault them as well. And I just don't understand how we can live in a world and we are adhering to beauty standards set by paedophiles.
Because I think it's still fetishizing fertility.
Right? Yeah.
Right? Like the Epstein class was playing in what they saw as a grey area of like, and it's so often reported that it's young women who are their victims, but they could turn out to be like 13.
It's girls.
But there's a sense that like once you hit puberty, then you're fair game. And because ultimately like society will condemn those specific actions or whatever, but it's still as obsessed with the idea of like women being here to have kids, like no matter what the cost and no matter how old they are. And that's why they're fretting about the fall in teen pregnancies over in the States. And on the other side, that's also why older women are seen as a threat, but also like are
thrown
more
away, right?
like
thrown away,
more marginalized and vulnerable,
totally,
and therefore easier to scapegoat.
Totally.
Which they are now and they were back then. So like 64% of those accused of witchcraft in Scotland were over 40.
Wow.
Which back then was basically like the end of your fertility.
Yes.
Including the woman whose grave we visited when we met Ros in Scotland. So this is Lilias Adey, who was over 60. She was losing her eyesight. She was in bad health. And there was one of these like outbreaks of illness amongst the residents around her, which created this like brief but really intense period of witch hunting. And her accuser, a woman, said, "Beware lest Lilias Adey come upon you and your child."
Wow.
So Lilias was tortured, confessed to being a witch, laying with the devil, to being part of a coven, but she wouldn't give up the other witches' names, which fucking fair play to you. Some real solidarity there. Among, who knows, probably weren't witches, but the idea is back then you were supposed to, if you named someone else and accused someone else, there was a chance that you
could be saved. Right, yeah.
She wouldn't do that.
I mean, and you know, it's like how can we accept anyone's admission when you're torturing them? Of course she's going to say, I'm doing these things when you're torturing people. Yeah,
she even renounced her baptism, which was a big thing back then, like as part of her confession, because that means that when they do kill you, you're definitely going to hell. And before she died in interrogation, she asked to have her baptism back from the religious folks who were torturing her like this, which is like a sign that like she had just been saying stuff to try and save herself. Because like in a similar way to what you were saying before, like being damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you confess to being a witch, you're a witch. If you don't, you're lying. If you drown, you're dead for being a witch. If you float, you're a witch. Like all of this means you're fucked, and the only way out is like accusing other women, and it wasn't always a way out anyway. So
heartbreaking.
So when we shot Ros, we shot her on this beach in Fife, Scotland, where Lilias is buried in the only known grave of an accused witch in Scotland. She's in this liminal space, this like tidal area that's like a lot of the time covered underwater, so you have to know where to look to find it. And they'd never bury you in a graveyard because that's consecrated ground, so they'd always throw your ashes in the river or whatever, or in this case buried her on the beach under this sandstone slab. And that the idea there was that they were scared that the devil would reanimate her to torment the living.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever,
Wild.
dudes. Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
My next section is called Cats.
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 Oh, this should be lovely and nice, right?
So we're all familiar with the idea of a witch's familiar.
Oh, nice. Well done.
That hurt my head a bit doing that one.
Oh, no.
That was not planned. This is just
riffing.
This is me.
Wow. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Which is a kind of imp, which often takes an animal form. And it either corrupts a woman or carries out her will.
Oh, okay.
If she's an accused witch.
Okay.
And there's this great article by this historian, Helen Parrish, about the witch trials, which explains that the familiars stood at this intersection of demonology, law, pamphlet culture, and everyday human animal life.
Okay.
And so instead of appearing only in these like grand stories of witches gathering at a Sabbath, the English familiar often belong to a much more ordinary domestic world. And so it's like there's almost like this kind of suspicion of single, older, widowed women in it, but that also kind of extends to their pets. Like,
okay, yeah.
What are they up to, or what's their cat up to?
And it's this idea that if you're putting your energy and love into a cat, you're not putting it into a partner, a husband, a child, right? It's seen as like the quote unquote the replacement child,
and it's unnatural.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, we obviously see this for child-free women or the childless cat lady, and the mirroring it's so clear. Political leaders, J.D. Vance calling out childless cat ladies. They use it as an insult. I mean, I couldn't think of anything better than having like just surrounded by cats, but they want us to feel ashamed of having a cat instead of a child or a husband. Joke's on you, we fucking love cats.
Cats are fucking great.
Right? Yeah. They're trying to put out an image that society is going to basically shame you and think there's something wrong with you, think you're going to lead a sad, lonely life because it's just you and your cat, you and your pet. It's all about, again, dehumanizing us and just making us weirdos.
Yeah. So you'll have to trust me that there are tons of stories about witches and their familiars.
No doubt.
I'm going to spare you now. But look up, if you're as nerdy as I am, look up Agnes Waterhouse, who was one of the first women accused of witchcraft in England. And her cat, who she got gifted by another woman who was also accused, which was called Satan.
I mean...
Sathan.
Oh, okay.
So maybe just coincidence.
But that's a play. Just calling your cat Satan, though. It's like,
right.
I don't give a damn. I'm calling my cat whatever I want to call it.
Yeah, and blaming it was blamed of killing one of the women's husbands.
Okay,
telling her how to basically perform an abortion on herself.
Well, so they really think that there's something inhabiting the cat? Like the cat can speak, the cat can...
Okay. Oh, you want to know?
I mean, it's just, this is like next level cat.
Let's go there.
I want a cat like this.
Right. So Agnes Waterhouse, apparently she was given this cat in exchange for a cake by Elizabeth Francis.
Okay.
Who also confessed to teaching Agnes witchcraft. And Elizabeth Francis said that the cat spoke to her in a strange, hollow voice.
Is one of those like, I'm just trying to think, because we've had cats in our lifetime, so I'm trying to think of
when they're like, I guess
yeah,
you could hear...
oh yeah, there's the devil in that. Yeah. Free me.
And apparently this cat would do anything for Francis in exchange for a drop of blood. So apparently it helped her kill a wealthy man who wouldn't marry her after she became pregnant with his child. It instructed her on what herbs to drink to terminate the pregnancy. Then when she gets married later and is unhappy, she willed the cat to kill her 6-month-old child and make her husband lame.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
It's a powerful cat. Yeah. And just thinking as well, like so much of like back then, we just didn't have the knowledge on women and their health. We still don't. A lot of it is still secret, so we're not part of the research. We're not we're just in the dark. So many women probably were dealing with mental health issues, postpartum depression.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they would put us in an asylum when we were probably just we actually had a disease or a mental health issue. It's like, okay, you're hysterical, we're going to pop you in an asylum.
Or we're maybe unhappy because you were just being treated like shit.
Exactly. And so how many of these stories actually come back to, yeah, you're treating women like dirt, you don't know what they're going through, and this is a result of it, you know?
Yeah, and this story is just as really normal and domestic as all of that as well. So the cat then helps Agnes Waterhouse commit similarly nefarious deeds. And then either she turned the cat into a toad or it transformed itself into a toad, at which point basically it starts apparently messing with her daughter Joan. And this is according to Joan's confession at this point, right? So her daughter Joan made a confession that saved her, but was used to convict Elizabeth Francis and her mother. And Joan's confession, she said that basically the kid next door denied her some bread and cheese. So she asked the toad to curse the child.
Okay.
So the toad sends a horned black dog with the face of an ape next door to the girl next door to demand some butter.
This is next level story.
Right. And then when denied, the weird dog demon unlocks the door, steals some butter. And so I think, like, in that case, right, I think Joan's just hungry. I think Joan's asking for some bread and cheese. She goes and steals some butter. And then later, when all of this witchcraft stuff comes up, she, like, blames it on a cat toad and a weird, like, demon dog. So it's like a very normal domestic story.
Yeah.
But this suspicion of a woman who has pets, like, that still persists to this day.
Oh, yeah. It's like the worst insult you can throw at a woman is like a cat lady. And like the
Childless cat ladies.
manosphere, yeah, they use it all the time. And it's in all the videos and the reels. And yeah, they're just trying to paint this picture of a sad, lonely, pathetic woman. She just has a cat. I mean, they don't realize that it just makes me more determined to one day live out my life as a childless cat lady. just
fill the van with cats,
just to anger them, you know.
And then you'll one of them will kill me and they'll all eat my corpse.
That's the plan.
What a way to go.
But the cat told me to do this.
But yeah, this childless cat ladies thing, J.D. Vance kind of owns the phrase now.
Right.
Or he's like actually trying to like distance himself a bit from it now.
Because of the backlash. Because...
Yes, sort of, kind of. So this is from a 2021 Tucker Carlson interview in which Vance...
Jesus.
Yeah, right. It's, only good stuff can come out of that.
Okay. Yeah. Wonderful guys.
So in that, Vance called the Democrats who were then in power a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too.
It's wild that these men can say this shit on platforms where millions of people listen to this bullshit. I mean, you know, it's like they're telling on themselves. They throw out childless cat lady, sad, lonely, pathetic, because they know we love our freedom. We're loving our lives without children, without partners sometimes, and that angers them. And they know they have to put out a message, paint a picture to convince other women. What they're showing you, it's all lies. You know how they look like they're having a blast? They have all the regrets in the world. Like, don't believe them. That's their fear, is that when you see a woman who is loving and living her life on her own terms, it empowers other women to do the same, and that terrifies them.
Yeah, and they are terrified. I mean, this kind of at the time just went out into the ether, or went out into the weird fucking red pill, like MAGA sphere,
right? But
then these comments resurfaced when Vance was making a run at being vice president, and he trotted out his wife Usha to basically explain away his comments. Like, she was out there saying that he wasn't literally referring to women who can't have children.
Ah, just us, just child-free women. That's nice.
Yeah, neither of them had any kind words.
Cool.
Thanks
for clarifying.
But they didn't want to cause any offence in that way.
Right. Okay. I mean, yes, a childless woman is still not as useful to them in a patriarchy. But the problem is when a woman actively chooses to not have the things that they tell them they need to have. Because if you are choosing to go against them, that's the problem. So it's child-free women who are the problem in that dynamic. But they will shame us all and not realize that they're also inflicting a lot of pain on the people who this wasn't a choice for them.
Yeah.
They just don't give a shit about who they hurt in the crossfire of firing out all of this shit.
Yeah, and I think in a way he was talking kind of like symbolically or metaphorically in a way, because he goes on to name 3 people, which actually include a stepmom and
Kamala
a gay
Harris,
man and a gay man who's now a father.
Right.
And he went on to say, it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
I hate that idea. That statement, it angers me so much. This idea that if you don't have your own children, somehow you don't care about the future. How about we care about your children? We care about the future that your children are going to have. And we're the ones who are protesting for your children. We are fighting for the climate crisis, for your kids, for everyone else's kids, because we actually do care about the future. It pisses me off so much because we know in our community how much work and activism and deep caring child-free and childless people do for their communities, their friends. They do think about the future. And this is all, again, the dehumanizing, because if they can say that, if they can say child-free people without kids don't care about the future, don't have a stake in the future, that means they can remove our rights. They can take away our vote because they're not going to be around, or their kids aren't going to be around. So why should they get a chance to vote for the future? It's all their plan of taking away our rights. Yeah,
because child-free women, especially, just like witches used to be, are this like threat to civilization.
Yeah. Or threat to the system.
Yes. I mean, patriarchy sees those two things as the same.
Yes.
So that's why this idea that like a witch typically lives in a hovel out there in the woods, maybe
alone.
Maybe in a coven or alone.
Yeah. Not an active part in society, quote unquote.
Right. And so their idea of like the natural order of things is actually civilization. But true nature is something dark and mysterious to be feared. Right. And I think that describes the woods out there.
Yes.
But also describes women who they don't like women's nature. Yeah. They want them to conform to what they think of as the natural order of things, which is patriarchy.
Absolutely.
So in the podcast, which someone mentioned this idea that there's a Christian patriarchal world where women are meant to be submissive, and anything that threatens that is magical and evil in nature.
Damn. Yes.
Right? And so it's a threat to civilization,
right,
as in the white supremacist, Christian, patriarchal, pronatal world.
Yeah.
It's portrayed as the world, but like you're saying, it's the system that's been imposed on the world.
Yeah.
And that's why the falling birth rate is seen as this kind of existential threat.
Right.
It's like a threat to our society, to civilization, to the human race even. And the blame for that is laid at women's feet.
Yes.
For either not having enough children or for not having children at all.
Yeah.
And we'll throw back to Harpy by Caroline McGuinness, who she talks about right-wing commentators treating us as malevolent witches hell-bent on destroying civilization.
That's it.
That's it. How you're... So even if you're not, as a child-free woman, like literally called a witch, I mean, in some shitty red pill manosphere forums, you'll be called a witch or equivalent.
Totally.
Like a hag, a
Yeah.
crone, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Or called worse.
Yeah.
But even if you're not being called that, you're kind of being treated in the same way.
Yeah.
As like this threat to civilization.
Yeah.
This threat
absolutely.
to the traditional idea of womanhood,
Mm-hmm.
including the woman's place in the home and in
Yeah.
society. And therefore a threat to civilization, this like man-made, top-down, patriarchal system in which everyone has their place and their role, with women's place being at the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Elon Musk, he uses this all the time. He's always talking about civilization collapsing and that, people aren't having enough kids. There's this existential crisis that we are living under, the pressure that he's trying to place on people it's not just to make people have kids, it's also to make them hate child-free people.
Yeah.
Because if you can demonize, dehumanize a group of people, then you can remove their rights. You can do whatever you want to them. You can kill them. You know what I mean? We see this all the time as the marginalized groups because they are a threat. They're a threat. We see it with trans folks. It's a threat to this ideal that they have pushed out into the world. And
portrayed as like the natural order of things, right?
Totally.
Like two genders, whatever is assigned at birth sets you off down a particular path.
Right.
And then that determines your biological destiny, but also everything else that happens in the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. And if you don't, there are punishments for not doing those things, especially
absolutely.
for women. Or like you're saying, marginalized people.
Yes.
Because this idea of civilization, that was and still is like a dog whistle, basically.
Yeah.
Like it's
the civilization that we want, which is white. Heterosexual,
patriarchal.
Yeah.
It comes out of Western Christian tradition, and you see how they treat anyone who doesn't fit all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think that Zoe was right, that when it comes to child-free women, they're the new witches.
Yeah, I am claiming this title, and if you want to call me a witch, then I'm a witch, and I'll empower other women to live their lives as the witches did back then, which was basically to be independent, to take control of their own lives, to band together, support each other. And that, in my head, is what a witch is. Then I'm a witch. And the more that we can help each other get outside of these systems, fight them as well, and use our voices to encourage and empower other women especially to live life on their terms. When you say to other people you're child-free, you're actually empowering other people who may not have had the courage to do it themselves. Yeah. You're also normalizing it. Normalizing it is the thing that's going to change how people look at us. Because if they have friends who say, I'm child-free, and they're like, well, I love this person, they're a good person, they're just living their life, it's all normalizing it. And that's why we are child free, because we are trying to normalize this path.
That's why we share the stories of child free people, especially women, and right now especially older women, to let you all know that there's nothing wrong with you, that a fulfilling future is entirely possible, and that amazing things can happen when you live authentically yourself. And that's what we're all about. And if you like that, you can join our Substack, wearechildfree.substack.com, and support us there. And when you do so, you'll get extended episodes of the pod, bonus episodes, behind the stories of the portraits of child-free elders when we go out to meet them, and you'll help support us to keep us sharing messages like these.
And if you want to actually find your witches and actually get your coven rolling, we have another live program called Hearth, which I'm actually running this cohort right now, and this weekend our session is on growing older. So we're going to be talking a lot about things like aging as a child-free person and getting to menopause and all of that stuff. So I'm really excited about that, because I've never had a space to be able to talk about that. And if you're interested in being able to find your child-free witches, then we're going to be launching a new cohort in September. So you can learn more about that at wearechildfree.com/hearth, which is HEARTH. Some people say hearth, some people say hearth. James?
Let's call the whole thing off. I don't know.
So however you say it, you can learn more there and find those deeper connections and find those witches.
Yes, witch.
Yes. Thank you, lovely. See
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.